People are evacuated from the south. People are evacuated from the north. The north is bombed and burning. It all starts from this closed up consciousness. If your state of mind is that you're under siege, then you will be even more besieged, more and more, and you will find yourself receding and receding. Shalom everyone. The title of today's class is Zionism 2.0. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to take and integrate different Torahs, different ideas from two different rabbis. One from the previous generation, one from this generation. The first is Rabbi Joseph B. Soloveitchik. He is the father of the American modern Orthodoxy. He was the rabbi of Yeshiva University. He was a contemporary of the Lubavitcher Rebbe and actually a good friend of his. And the other rabbi is still alive. His name is Rav Ginsburgh, my teacher. Among other things, he was, for a short time, a student of Rav Soloveitchik when he studied at Yeshiva University. He studied mathematics before he made Aliyah to Eretz Israel. So they're very different in their styles. Rav Soloveitchik was not a student of Kabbalah and Chassidut. He had admiration for it. He appreciated it. But he himself was very much a rabbi of the revealed level of the Torah, a halachic rabbi, and we could say a Torah philosopher, someone who used his knowledge of philosophy, and his thinking was very philosophical in order to analyze Torah concepts, besides being a halachic figure. Rav Ginsburgh is mostly a Kabbalist and a Hasidic teacher. So the main thing he does is he uses Kabbalistic concepts and models in order to explain whatever it is that he's teaching. And today we're going to see that these two approaches can really converge, and then we get an understanding of a topic that's richer, I think, and more complex, with more facets and aspects to it than we would get from learning just one of them without the other. So we're going to start with Rav Soloveitchik. Rav Soloveitchik has a very important essay called Kol Dodi Dofek. It's a verse from the Song of Songs. It means the voice of my beloved is knocking. The beloved is, of course, God. God is knocking on the doors of our own consciousness, our own hearts, trying to get in. It's a verse from the Song of Songs, and he turned it into a very lengthy, very important essay. And one of the main elements that he has in this essay is that he differentiates between two covenants, two types of covenants. On the one level, they're historical. He says that one covenant we made with God in Egypt, and the second covenant we made with God in the Sinai mountain. But he also talks about it on a higher level, a different level, as different types of covenant that a nation can have and that the Jewish people has, and they form two levels of the Jewish identity. So he calls the first covenant the covenant of fate. In Hebrew, this is Brit Goral, the covenant of fate, and with that corresponds to us coming together and connecting to God already in Egypt as slaves. And the second covenant he calls the covenant of destiny. In Hebrew, this is Brit Ye'ud. Destiny has to do with the future, with the calling, the purpose of the people, and this corresponds to the covenant we made at Mount Sinai. So what is the difference between the two covenants? So the covenant of fate is mostly past-oriented, and it has to do with external forces that cause the nation to come together. They create unity within the nation, but it's a unity that's propelled by outside forces, especially negative forces. So persecutions, going through mutual suffering, all this creates a common fate, a feeling of camaraderie, of being stuck together in a certain predicament, and then it unites the people. So on the outside, it's persecution and suffering, but that creates a sort of common sense of responsibility, what we call Kol Yisrael Arevim Ze Leze. All of Israel act as sort of assurances, one for the other. We guarantee one for the other. And it also creates cooperation. This is very much the state of modern Jewry. Modern Jewry today is not so much united by a vision or being connected through the Torah, because many, many Jews do not feel connected to the Torah and do not believe in the Torah. But there is a sense, partially, it got lost for a while, and it has been coming back ever since Simchat Torah, October 7th, a feeling of a common fate. We are suffering together from anti-Semitism, from persecution, from not being supported in the world, and then we have a feeling that we are together in one boat, and this creates a kind of camaraderie and connection and mutual responsibility. And again, according to Rav Soloveitchik, this goes along with the state of the Jewish people, the Israelites, in Egypt. This was before the giving of the Torah. They didn't have the Torah. What got them to feel that they're all together, that they're one nation, is that they were all slaves to Pharaoh. So they had the same predicament, the same fate, the same sense of suffering, and then they were united, and there was a covenant with God just based on this feeling that we're slaves and we need to be rescued. Now, on top of this comes the second covenant, the covenant of destiny, the Brit Ye'ud. So if the covenant of fate is past-oriented, then the covenant of destiny is future-oriented. It's not based on going through the same history and being persecuted by the same other nations. It has to do with sharing a purpose, sharing a vision for the future. This is higher. It also uplifts us to a higher level. And this, of course, is the covenant that we had with God when we arrived at Mount Sinai and received the Torah. The Torah is the mutual goal, the common shared vision that we need to have. The word Torah comes from the word hora'ah, which means instruction. Torah is God giving us instructions on how to live. This isn't a reflection of reality as it is, of what is. It is a call to create something else. It doesn't talk about what is, but what ought to be. So this instruction is coming from the Torah, and this is the common vision that creates the higher level covenant, the covenant of destiny. Now, he also, after laying this out, the two covenants as concepts and as historical moments, Egypt and Sinai, he then connects it to two other notions that by divine providence they appear in this week's parsha. This was unplanned, but it was a fortunate coincidence. There's no coincidence, it's a fortunate hashgacha pratit. This week's parsha is parashat Beha'alotcha. And one of the verses that appears in this parsha is the following. It goes like this: make thee 2 trumpets of silver, right? There's an instruction to construct 2 trumpets of silver. And this is the foundation of the commandment that we have later on Rosh Hashanah to blow the horn. Then the whole concept of the horn and the types of blowings that we do, it all comes from this commandment of the 2 silver trumpets. So you need to make the 2 trumpets of silver, of a whole piece shall thou make them. And then come the 2 terms that are important to us. That thou shalt use them for calling the congregation. In Hebrew, this is lemikra ha'edah, to call the congregation, to come together, to congregate, to come together and gather around the tabernacle. That's one purpose of the 2 trumpets. And the second purpose is for the journeying of the camps. This is in Hebrew, lemasa et hamachanot, to address the camps that they now need to start moving again, because they were traveling in the desert. So when they start traveling, there was one trumpet call that basically announced, get up and start moving. And there was another trumpet call that signaled, stop and gather around the tabernacle. And the trumpets were used for both of them. It's not in this verse, but it's explained that when you wanted to gather them all together, you used one blow, one long blow. This is what we know from Rosh Hashanah called the Tki'ah, because they're coming together as one, so it's one long blow in the horn, in the trumpet. And when they started moving, going outside and traveling, it was a broken blow. This is called the Tru'ah. There are 2 variations of what a Tru'ah is, and we all know this from Rosh Hashanah. But in the Torah, it's just these 2 types, the single blow and the broken blow. But the words we have to focus on are Edah and machanot, congregation and camps. When the trumpets are used to pull everyone together in the one blow of the trumpet, then they're called an edah, a congregation. And when they start moving together and then they break down into their different camps, right? There were 12 camps, 12 tribes, and start moving, then they're called machanot. So Rav Soloveitchik says these two words, these two levels, or two ways to address or to think about the Jewish people, edah and machanot, edah is singular, machanot is plural, they correspond to the two covenants. When we talk about the covenant of fate, everyone is in one fate, then the word that corresponds to this is camps, machanot. When we're just camping also has a military connotation to it. The same blow of the trumpet that was used in the desert to get everyone going as camps was later used in the land of Israel to send them out to battle, to war. Just as they were traveling in the desert, so once they arrived at the land of Israel, they need to go out into war with the same trumpet call. That's the broken call. So they're camps. Camps is the common fate. We have one fate. We're on the move. We're traveling. We're persecuted. We're fighting other people. And then we think of ourselves as different camps, that we're connected, but we're connected as different camps. So even just the word machaneh is associated with this with this level, this covenant, the covenant of fate. However, when we come together with a shared vision and with a shared calling and destiny, the covenant of destiny, then we become an edah. And this is used in this verse in the singular, calling the congregation one edah. And the word edah is actually very similar to the word ye'ud. They come from the same two-letter root, ayin daled, which also means to bear witness to something. When we follow the Torah, we bear witness that the Torah is true, that the Torah is real. And as we come together as a nation, we become not just camps, we become an edah. So this is what Rav Soloveitchik says. All this is in his essay called the Dofek, and it's lengthier, but these are the main types that we want. And now what Rav Soloveitchik is basically saying, and I think he was very much right in this, is that Zionism is based solely or almost solely on the notion of the covenant of fate. It's based on anti-Semitism, persecution, the pogroms, the Holocaust, and then it thinks about the whole Zionist movement as coming to the land of Israel in order for the land of Israel to serve as an encampment, as a camp, as a shelter, as like one big shelter, a national shelter, like a refuge, a place you run to because you're persecuted, and then you want to stay in that place in order not to be persecuted anymore. It shelters you, it guards you, it's like a camp, it's an encampment. It puts you together, and he doesn't say this, but the fact that the word camps is used in the plural in this verse suggests that when we're in this we're in this consciousness, we're going to break down into different camps. We're not going because we don't have a unifying vision. It's just a unifying predicament, a unifying fate. So we're one camp. There's solidarity. There's some patriotism. There's a lot of things. It is a sense of unity. It's a covenant, but ultimately it breaks you into camps. Just as the image of traveling in the desert, then they broke down into camps and started traveling. So this is we can call this a kind of survival mentality, that we don't have a shared vision. The only shared vision that we have, or what serves as a vision instead of the vision we should have, is survival itself. We are one people. We have no other choice. We have no other country to run to. We can't escape our Jewishness. It'll always be remembered. Anti-Semitism will always be there. So the shared vision is let's survive together. But that's not really a vision. It's turning their survival mentality into the vision. But it's not an uplifting vision. It's not a positive vision. It's a negative vision because it's based on a negative element, the element of the shared fate that's based on animosity from the outside. Interestingly, the word, the good word, the word edah, the congregation, is used in modern Hebrew, in Israeli society, but not for the meaning that it should use. It's used to describe the different origins of Jews, if they're Sephardic or Ashkenazi or they're Yemenite, whatever they're coming from. This is called adot. So people will ask one another, which Ada are you from? Are you Sephardic? Are you Yemenite? Are you from Morocco? Are you from Iraq? Are you from Germany? Are you from Poland? So these are the adot. And so, of course, it's a sad thing, because the word Eda in this verse, the way he explains it, the word Eda should be the unifying element, the vision-based element, not the different camps. So even the word Eda itself deteriorated and is just another word to describe the different camps that we have. So basically he's saying it's a good level, it's okay to have the covenant of fate, but we need to add the covenant of destiny. So much right now for Rav Soloveitchik. Now we're moving to Rav Yitzchak Ginsburgh. Now again, different style, different approach, different perspective, but as we'll see, his concepts and his terms, his terminology can absolutely be reconciled with the terminology of Rav Soloveitchik, and then we get a whole that's bigger than the sum of its parts. Very beautiful. So Rav Ginsburgh has a very important essay it exists in a Hebrew book. It's part of a trilogy. It's a 3-volume work. It's called Malchut Israel, the Kingdom of Israel. And basically it has his vision of what it means, basically Torah politics or Jewish politics. But in a very kind of dense, Kabbalistic, Hasidic language, as is his style. And we need to sort of open it up and explain it more what it means. So one of the essays there is called Nekuda Kav Shetach, which means point, line, area. These are both Kabbalistic terms and very simple geometric terms. A point is a geometrical point, 0 dimensions, 1 point. A line is one dimension. That's when you take the point and you add another point somewhere else, and then you have a direction and you can create a line. And finally, area is a 2-dimensional plane. That's what it means. So which by extension we can say is multi-dimensional, many dimensions, because then jumping from a plane to a space to a hyperspace to whatever we want is included in some way by having 2 dimensions, a plurality of dimensions. So when just these 3 concepts encompass the entire idea of having dimensions: a point of 0 dimensions, a line, which also connotes a trajectory, a direction, movement, and then something much wider, which is an area of 2 or more dimensions that's bigger, that's more stable, and it has a lot of infinite amount of lines or directions can be included in a plane. Once you have a piece of paper, you can draw anything. You can do anything with a piece of paper. That's a plane. Okay, so it's geometrical notions, but also Kabbalistic notions. And so he uses these 3 notions to explain the process, the evolution of the awakening of the dream of the return of the Jewish people to Zion, to the land of Israel. The awakening of the dream of what we call Shivat Zion, returning to Zion. For 2,000 years we were in diaspora, we were in exile, we were in a lot of different camps, and then we started dreaming about coming back to the land of Israel, and we know that this created the Zionist movement and created the situation we have today of a Jewish state, or at least a state of Jews, which is called the State of Israel, and in which, for the time being, half or almost half of the Jewish people is concentrated in this land. So it's the biggest Jewish community in the world, bigger than the American community of Jews. But this is still a work in progress. So he's trying to analyze this using Torah terminology, and he's using these 3 terms. So let's go over them one by one. What is the point level of the dream of Shivat Zion, of returning to Zion? So the point is what we had throughout the 2,000 years of diaspora, of exile. It was just a dream in the hearts of Jews. They read in their prayer book, and they read in the Bible, and they spoke about this as one day Mashiach will come, and we will all return to the land of Israel, and we'll have the 3rd temple, and it'll happen. But this was just like a seed planted in their hearts, like a little point. It was undeveloped, unexpanded. It was in a state of potentiality. It wasn't actualized. And this was a very stable state It's just one point. It's just one unrealized, unfulfilled dream. But as a dream, it existed, and it's called Nekudat Tzion. Nekudat Tzion is the point of Tzion, that it was in the heart of all Jews. This knowledge, this faith that one day will come back to the land of Israel and will have the redemption. So this was the first stage, very stable, and existed for a long time. What is the line stage? So the line stage is basically the Zionist movement. Although it didn't start out as a secular movement, the first awakenings were religious based. It was the Hasidic families that came with Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Vitebsk in the 18th century. After that, it was the students of the Vilna Gaon. But later on, when it really took off with the secular Zionist movements, with the Zionist Congress, and then waves of immigration started coming and dreaming, and not just dreaming, but fulfilling, at least partially, the dream of Shivat Zion and the building of the Jewish state. So why is this a line? Because now we're coming out of this passivity of just dreaming and having this dream in our hearts as like an unfulfilled point, and we start moving forward and getting things happening and traveling towards the land of Israel. Interestingly, the Hebrew word for line, kav, is the root of the Hebrew word tikva, which means hope. The word hope has the word kav, line, within it, the middle two letters, meaning that hope is always like a line, like a lifeline. You throw someone a lifeline, you give them hope. It's a line of hope. Also, the word lekavot in Hebrew, to hope, is in one of the Hebrew words for praying. When we're praying, we say kaveh el Hashem, hope to God, send out a line of hope towards God, and maybe He'll send you a line of hope back. And as we all know, the hymn that they chose, the Zionists, for the state of Israel, the hymn is called HaTikva, the hope. So the word kav, tikva, is actually there in the hymn, very much a reflection of what Zionism is all about. The Hebrew, the Israel hymn, reflects this kav element. Now, there is a problem with kav. Kav is the middle level. It's more than a point, it's less than an area. What does it mean that it's just one line? It means that this vision, this movement, is one-dimensional. It's one-dimensional. It lacks at least one other dimension in order to become an area, a fully developed, stable area. What is this one dimension? Basically, it's the material dimension. The material dimension means that Zionism is based on a materialistic vision. It's not that there wasn't a lot of spirit in it and faith in it, and of course camaraderie and also art and literature, a lot of things they had. But in a deeper sense, because they pushed away the Torah and also the faith in God, it was very much a secular movement, Zionism, that went out and started building the Israeli state, the Jewish state of Israel. It was very much a secular movement, and therefore, because they negated or they pushed away or they put behind them the major element of the Torah, of faith, of the dream of also not just building a national home for the Jewish people, but to build a religious home for God, a home for God Almighty. That's the vision of the temple. They didn't have this in mind. When they finally captured the Temple Mount, immediately they had to give it back because they didn't know what to do with it. It wasn't in their plan. They didn't plan on governing the Temple Mount, and then asking themselves even the question if they want to build the temple or not build the temple. They ran away from that. They wanted only the material element of what it means, the return to Zion, the return of the Jewish people to their land. They wanted a secular national state, and the fact that it had culture and spirit, and they put a lot of all their hearts and souls into this, doesn't take away from the fact that the vision, as a vision, what they had was basically a mundane, earthly, secular vision of building a regular, modern national state, just like other non-Jewish national states. And so they copied the Declaration of Independence from the Americans and from the French and from other countries. They used that as a template for the Declaration of Israeli Independence. So this was a one-dimensional vision. It's relatively speaking a narrow vision. Now there is another element. When we're talking about a line is many, many different points. An area is many different lines. But a line is many different points. This means that when you have just a line, really, when you sort of zoom into it, it breaks down into a lot of points, each one sometimes wanting to go in other directions. They're arguing about which direction the line should go. Because a point is just a point, doesn't go anywhere. But a line can go in 100, a million, an infinite amount of directions. So each point on the line is sort of dreaming of another, it has a different direction it wants to go. So there's a lot of arguments. This is very much true of the way Zionism came about and is still existing. Israel is unique in having, no, it's not the only country, but it's one of those countries that has a lot of different parties, and those parties keep coming together and breaking apart and converging and diverging, and you lose track. And if I, having lived a few decades in Israel, I don't remember even all the parties that we had, we don't have, and what I grew up with is not what we have today. It's not like America, you have two parties and that's it. A lot of different parties, and all these parties, this is, as we'll see in a minute, this is just the camps. Now the idea is that both the point and the line, although the line is infinitely better than the point, and the line takes you out from passivity to an active state, from living abroad, not having any or hardly any Jews living in the state of Israel, to waves of immigration coming, building the state of Israel. It's infinitely better than the point, They have something in common. What they have in common is that they're both called different states of tohu, of chaos. Why? Why are they both chaotic in a sense? Because they're still not the rectified state, that's the third state of the area. But there's a difference. The first chaos, that point, is called stable chaos. It's chaos because chaos is not something chaotic necessarily. So stable chaos is not chaotic at all. Stable chaos is very stationary. It's chaos because it's unrectified. It's not the fulfilled vision of the Jewish people. They're just in diaspora, dreaming of one day coming, having redemption. So this is why it's called a chaotic state, a tohu state. It's light without vessels, but it's very stable. The line is more advanced. We're on the go, we're moving, we're starting to build the vision of the return to the land of Israel, but this time it's an unstable chaos. It's fragile. A line can be broken very easily. And this is why the history of Zionism is extremely fragile. It's full of wars, it's full of conflicts, external, internal. It's not been a quiet century, right? Ever since Zionism has really formulated. It's been a very, very hectic decade. In a way, it's been much more hectic than 2,000 years of diaspora, in a way. In the sense that in the diaspora, people knew what they are, where they are, and they all had the same dream. But Zionism is, as a people together with a vision, we are very, very much conflicted and embattled within, because we have these different points. Now, this is the time to now start integrating or putting together Rav Soloveitchik with Rav Ginsburgh. Because this second stage, the stage of the line, corresponds very beautifully to what Rabbi Soloveitchik called the covenant of fate. Why? What created this line, the transition from the point to the line? It was the pogroms and anti-Semitism. It was external forces pushed us into coming out, awakening this point of dreaming about the land of Israel and translating it into an action. So we started getting together, moving towards our goal, but all this coming together is based on the lowest common denominator, the fate, not the destiny. The fact that this line is made up of a lot of different points, each one trying maybe to move in a different direction, corresponds to the different camps, the encampments. The fact that this is the history of Zionism is rife with battles, with wars, also goes along with the concept of camps. And of course, the narrowness, the one-dimensionality of the line is what we called before the survival mentality, that we just want to build a shelter. That's what we want. We can put aside our differences. We cannot argue about what Judaism is all about, what the Torah is about, what is God's will. No, these questions, these are spiritual questions. They should be private questions. If you're a believing Jew, you can ask yourself those questions, but it's not something the nation needs to deal with. It's this one-dimensional mind of let's come to the land of Israel and just build a structure that will serve as a national shelter, a bomb shelter that we can survive in. This is one-dimensional thinking. So here you see the survival mentality of the covenant of faith Rabbi Soloveitchik spoke about, coming together beautifully with the concept of the one-dimensional Zionism that Rav Ginsburgh is talking about, right? So it goes together. So now we still haven't discussed what is the area, what is the third stage. So because we made this correspondence, we now know that the area corresponds to the covenant of destiny, of a common vision. For the line to become an area, a two-dimensional or multi-dimensional area, we need to add a dimension that's perpendicular to the one dimension we have. We have a line, we have a state, we have this Zionist vision, we have a flag, we have a hymn, we have a country, we have an army. But it's all, relatively speaking, one-dimensional. We need to add another dimension that crosses it. It's perpendicular to it. It's a totally different dimension. But if they come together, they create an area. It's something very, very multidimensional. What is this other dimension? This is the spiritual dimension, the dimension of the Torah, the dimension of faith, the dimension of Judaism, not just as a nation, but also as a people with a goal, with a vision, with a Torah, that gives them a whole worldview and a whole system of thinking and a whole system of behaving. So full Zionism, the whole Zionism, the holistic Zionism, should be an integration of the physical dimension that exists already and the spiritual dimension, which is, as of yet, mostly or largely shunned by many, many Jews. If we put these two dimensions together, we get an area. We get something that's not the stable chaos of the point. It's not the unstable or fragile chaos of the line. This is tikkun, the rectified state of the Jewish vision being enacted, realized in the land of Israel. By the way, we're coming out of Shavuot, of Festival of Weeks, the counting of the Omer. The counting of the Omer is all about taking a line and turning it into an area. We take 7 elements, the 7 elements of the 7 Sefirot, and we do, instead of just 7 days, we have 49 days. We have 7 times 7. And this is the 2 dimensions that create the 49 days. So the whole idea of moving from Egypt, if you remember, Rav Soloveitchik spoke about the first covenant as happening in Egypt, and then the second covenant taking place on Mount Sinai. The whole movement from Egypt to Sinai is the counting of the Omer is the construction of an area, 7 by 7, which is the image of multiplying or taking 2 dimensions, putting them together, squaring them into an area. So in the Rav Soloveitchik's terms, he didn't, of course, talk about the counting of the Omer and the 2 dimensions coming together. This we get from Rav Ginsburgh's terminology. But what he spoke about is we need to add the covenant of destiny to the covenant of faith. Covenant of faith is good, but it's just a basic level. You need to add the covenant of destiny. So adding the spiritual Torah dimension to the dimension of secular Zionism is creating the covenant of destiny, putting them all together. And this is from becoming only camps to both being camps and a congregation, right? Becoming an edah, not just a machanot. Now, Rav Ginsburgh adds something very beautiful to this. He says the fact that we're going through these 3 stages, right? So the first stage of the point, that's what existed for 2,000 years. And the second stage of the line has been going on for about 100 years. And the next stage is something we need to do. It's maybe starting, you can see glimmers of it by people who grew up, like myself, grew up secular Zionists and then discovered the Torah. Other people are discovering the same thing. Then we're maybe in the transition time between the line stage and the area stage. He said something beautiful. He said that if you look at the Jewish, at how Jews lived in the land of Israel, you can actually see almost like a graphic, like a visual illustration of those 3 stages. What do I mean? And when the dream of Shivat Zion, of coming back to Zion, was only a point, what did we have in the land of Israel? We had very small communities. One community in Jerusalem, one community in Tzfat, one community in Hebron. We were very small, like little points, like a few little scattered points. Just like Jews were scattered all over the world, then in the land of Israel, there was no sovereignty of any sort. You had small communities that lived among the Arabs and among the people who were here. So that's what we had. Enter the second stage of the line. Zionism is coming into the world, and it creates the Jewish state. What is the shape of the state of Israel right now? The shape of the state of Israel is like a stripe. It's a narrow land. It's like a stripe. It has, it's like a triangle at the bottom, and it has the Golan Heights. It doesn't matter. It's still, when people today are shouting from the river to the sea is basically like a stripe. It's like a line. It's a bit like a line. It's not the shape of the promised land. The promised land is much more like an area. It's much more a bit like a big square. But the land of Israel that we're currently occupying, the state of Israel, that's in the shape of a stripe or of a line. So this corresponds to the stage of the line. But once we fulfill the full destiny of the full promised land, of governing the promised land, then we would expand beyond the river eastward. That's the boundaries of the divine promise. That would create like an area. And of course, beyond that, the prophecy is that the land of Israel will spiritually expand to fill the entire globe, meaning the entire earth will be a holy land. It wouldn't be just one piece of land in the Middle East. Is once all the world comes into divine consciousnness, and the world is filled with the knowledge of God, as the water covers the sea, as the verse says, as Maimonides finishes his major work and using this verse, then the land of Israel will actually like spiritually expand to cover the entire world, the entire globe, and there wouldn't be a diaspora, a chutz la'aretz, an outside of the land. There wouldn't be coming up to Israel or going down from Israel to make aliyah or yerida. It would just be a holy globe, a holy planet, a holy world. So this is all coming from the state of mind of an expansion, of moving forward. Now, the fact that we are still locked up in this line mentality, in just the covenant of fate, just wanting to survive, just wanting to build a national shelter, what happens is that if you don't have the vision, the covenant of destiny, and the vision is to create something broad, multidimensional, to have the dimension of the Torah, the vision of the Torah, to expand, to bring light to the world, to share our Torah knowledge with the world, to give wisdom, the wisdom of Torah, of Judaism to the world, because we don't have that, what happens is that even the little stripe that we have is being diminished and made smaller, and we find ourselves sort of narrowing down, and we are experiencing this now literally. People are evacuated from the south. People are evacuated from the north. The north is bombed and burning, and people are running away, and it's expanding to more and more cities. Now Tzfat is being bombed. Tveria, Tiberias is being bombed. So it all starts from this closed up consciousness of I just want the line Zionism, the fate Zionism. I just want a shelter. If your state of mind is shelter, then if your state of mind is that you're under siege, then you will be even more besieged, more and more, and you will find yourself receding and receding. The opposite of that is not to be expansionalist or militant, or to dream of an empire. That's not the Jewish way of thinking, but it is to have a vision I want to share with the world. So then my state of mind shifts from being focused in my little place and wanting to live in this shelter and just survive. It's not just surviving. I want to go out into the world and share the Torah, share the wisdom, share the light, share the beauty, out of love, out of care for the world. I want to redeem the world. I want to give to the world. I also want to receive to the world. It happens together. Once we start teaching the Torah to everyone in the world, to non-Jews, then the principle of the teacher learning the most from his students will apply for all the nations of the world. We'll teach the Torah to everyone, and then we'll learn from them as well. It's a mutual process and journey, but it starts with having a vision of going out of ourselves, of expanding spiritually, which can then help you also to expand physically if you need to attack before you're being attacked, not to get to a state that you're losing areas of your own land and everyone is running away and into the center of the land. So it all begins with this, coming out of this narrowed vision, one-dimensional vision, and connecting to the full multi-dimensional vision of the Torah that we have, and then uplifting ourselves, raising ourselves from just the covenant of faith to the covenant of destiny, and this destiny being to share the light of the Torah, the vision that we have, that we need to connect to the entire world. May we all merit to reclaim, return to our land in the fullest sense of the word, not just the physical land of Israel, but the spiritual land of Torah wisdom, Torah knowledge. And then once we root ourselves, connect ourselves to the spiritual land, we'll be able to share it with the rest of the world. Amen. This video was made possible through the kind support of my sponsors over at Patreon. Patreon is a great way to help independent creators like myself produce original content. If you'd like to get more English language videos from me, please consider becoming a supporter via Patreon. You can find the link in the description below. Thank you very much.